Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, there's a whole lot of stuff going on right now, and I don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but I'm going to try to do my best here. Mark Giordano being traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, guys being placed on waivers. They signed a goalie from the KHL, Travis Dermott, traded to the Vancouver Canucks. Let's get right into it. What are those waiver moves, you ask? Well, the Maple Leafs placed Petr Mrazek, Kyle Clifford, and Harry Satiri on waivers today. More on who Satiri is towards the end of the video. Mrazek being placed on waivers, whether or not he gets claimed is yet to be seen, but if he doesn't and he clears, that frees up $1.125 million in salary cap space, and Clifford being placed on waivers frees up another $1 million or so. Finally, the details of this trade being announced, as it broke at around 3 p.m., but for salary cap reasons, we needed to wait until after 5 for it to be made official here. But 2 second-round picks and a third-rounder for Mark Giordano and Colin Blackwell. Let's talk about Mark Giordano first. We talked about Mark Giordano at length in our previous video here, but just to go over his numbers as a refresher here, this season with the Seattle Kraken, he hasn't been able to provide that offensive output that we've known from him in the past, but still playing a top 4 role from them, has been very effective defensively, both at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. Mark Giordano is 38 years old, but I have a hard time believing that he's fallen off that much offensively. This is his evolving hockey player card from his last year with the Calgary Flames, which was just last season. The Seattle Kraken are not a very good offensive team this season, but if we're looking at their numbers with and without Mark Giordano at 5-on-5 this year, they're a better offensive team and defensive team when he's out there on the ice. I especially like the part where there's not a whole ton going on in front of their net or in that slot area when he's out there, and you can see the difference for when he's not. If we're taking a look at Giordano's Seattle teammates with and without him this season, you can see the guys in red are without Mark Giordano. So guys playing away from him are worse off defensively, and the guys in gray are paired with him are much better defensively. And the guys in blue, those are Giordano without that specific player. And because they're all really tight to the middle there, that means that Giordano isn't really relying on anyone to produce good results. Maybe it's quite obvious, but we'll talk about who he could possibly be playing with in a minute. But if you want to note what he's been good at this season, he's been great at defending Seattle's blue line and limiting opportunities off the rush, which is definitely something that the Maple Leafs were looking at improving in this season. And he's also been great at getting the puck out of his own team's zone with possession, which is always nice. We talked about this in a previous video, but the thought going into this year's trade deadline is that if Morgan Rielly can find chemistry or success with either Ilya Lyubushkin, Timothy Liljegren, or somebody else, then that frees up TJ Brodie to be a problem solver elsewhere on Toronto's blue line. And because he could play both the left and the right side, it opened up so many more options for the Maple Leafs to explore at this year's trade deadline. I don't know if the Maple Leafs will reunite Mark Giordano and TJ Brodie, but it's rare to have an opportunity to acquire a guy who has thousands of minutes of experience playing with someone who you already have on your roster, including a year where the guy that you're acquiring won a Norris Trophy, and that being just 3 seasons ago. That's the type of connection that Mark Giordano and TJ Brodie have. Giordano has spent the largest percentage of his ice time playing up against the other team's best players for the Seattle Kraken this season. Overall, he is losing the shot attempt share and the dangerous Fenwick 4 share, which measures the quality of unblocked shot attempts, but relative to the rest of his teammates, the numbers are positive in a decent defensive role. I don't care that he's 38 years old. The Maple Leafs just acquired a legitimate top 4 defenseman who plays defense, defends well against the rush, and can get the puck out of his own zone. That's a win. In the latest edition of 32 Thoughts, it was reported that Toronto's been looking at some changes for its 4th line, and that's where Colin Blackwell comes in. Colin Blackwell can play both wings and has produced good defensive results in a 3rd line role for the Seattle Kraken this year. They haven't been good very offensively with him out there, but defensively, the Seattle Kraken have been a much better team with Colin Blackwell out there on the ice. If we're looking at Blackwell's teammates with and without him this season, most of them are worse off defensively when not next to him, and a lot better when they are. But the one thing that you need to be careful of when referencing with and without numbers is the type of minutes that his team is playing in with and without him. Good defensive numbers are good defensive numbers, but they're not as impressive when you see that he's not really playing a whole ton up against the other team's best players. And when he is, those numbers overall and relative to his teammates are not necessarily the greatest. But he does have 17 points in 39 games for the Kraken this year and had 22 and 47 last year for the New York Rangers. So maybe Colin Blackwell is able to be a stable defensive presence on that fourth line and also pitch in a little bit offensively. Especially if you're looking at his evolving hockey player card from last season with the New York Rangers, this is a guy who has some offensive upside. Travis Dermott being traded for the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a third-round pick, which is likely the pick that's being flipped to the Seattle Kraken here. So the Maple Leafs received some cap relief this season in order to make the deal work, and also next year as well, as Travis Dermott had another year left on his deal at $1.5 million. Just really quickly here to touch on Travis Dermott. Every year since his rookie season, he regressed. He didn't take any steps forward. Every opportunity that he was given to play in their top four did not go very well. And this season, he was their 7th, even their 8th defender at times, didn't kill any penalties, didn't play on the power play, didn't drop the gloves, was a bit of a pest sometimes after the whistles, but didn't really involve himself physically as well. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out here in Toronto. He is a Toronto boy, and in his press conference yesterday, he was saying just how much of a childhood dream it was for him to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I wish him the best in Vancouver. The market for defensemen basically started with Josh Manson going for a second and a decent prospect, and then the Florida Panthers swooped in and paid a first, a fourth, and a prospect who was drafted just in the 3rd round a couple of years ago for Ben Sherratt, and then the floodgates absolutely opened after that, with Hampus Lindholm going for a first and 2 second-round picks and then being extended by the Boston Bruins afterwards. Even seeing a guy like Calle Jarnkrok go for a second, a third, and a 7th, knowing what Colin Blackwell is, maybe Jarnkrok a bit better, a little bit more versatile, but to get a guy who can score and play decent defense on your fourth line and really only give up 2 second-round picks, remember, they got a third in exchange for Travis Dermott, is real good work by the Toronto Maple Leafs here. Kyle Dubas stating that he wanted to stay out of the rental market this year, but getting a guy who wanted to be traded to Toronto, who's from Toronto, and is towards the end of his career here, if he plays well, I am totally open to bringing him back on maybe like a Jason Spezza type contract. And then at that point, maybe the price that you give up to acquire him and Blackwell, remember, because Blackwell's a good bottom 6 player in this deal as well, is a little bit easier to stomach. Now, Harris Satiri, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but is 32 years old and was the starting goaltender for the Finnish Olympic team when they won gold at this year's Olympics. The reason why he requires waivers is because he's played professional hockey outside of North America this year, so he would need to clear waivers first before being able to report to either the Toronto Marlies or the Toronto Maple Leafs. Had a .926 save percentage in 38 games in the KHL this year, a .922 the year before that in 47 games, a .921 the season before that in 43 games. I'm not saying that this guy is a savior or anything like that. I think that Eric Källgren has played well enough to at least be the Maple Leafs backup, but this could be a third option here, and a decent one at that. But we all know better to be excited about this, right? It's very possible that another team just swoops in and claims him off of waivers. And it's a Jared McCann situation all over again, where we acquire a player that we're getting excited about, and then he's just gone. So until he clears waivers tomorrow at 2 p.m., don't get too excited, I guess. Like I said, guys, I'm sorry if I missed anything in regards to this trade. The details came out at like 5, even though the trade broke at like 3. I do timekeeping for the NYHL, and there's a game going on right now, and I'm editing the video as I'm operating the clock. But in terms of what the Maple Leafs can do after acquiring Mark Giordano, not so much. Unless a team wants to claim Petr Mrazek off of waivers, or the Maple Leafs are able to find a trade candidate to take him off of their hands, or if Muzzin stays on LTIR for the remainder of the season, but it doesn't exactly sound like that's going to happen. If there's any updates, I will do a video tomorrow, maybe even do a stream tomorrow as well. Let me know if you guys want that to happen. And make sure to leave me a like on the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, I'll see you in the next one.